"I don't deserve a wedding," she whispered, but the sheriff held her hand anyway in the heart of Laramie, Wyoming Territory, 1887, where the dust of the frontier settled on reputations as readily as it did on the unpaved streets. Evelyn Evie Parker was a melody played in a shadowed room. Her fingers, usually dancing across the ivory keys of the Blue Lantern Saloon, were currently stilled, the echo of a crude insult still hanging in the air. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if this story touched you. Don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow, I saved something very special just for you. The laughter of drunken patrons, once a soundtrack to her life, now felt like stones hurled at her soul. Evie, a woman marked by the whispers of a town that judged her past, a past involving a violent trail boss and a broken engagement, believed herself irrevocably stained. The very idea of a wedding, a symbol of purity and a new beginning, felt like a cruel jest. She confided in Nora Bell, the saloon's owner and her sole confidant, a quiet confession laced with the bitter taste of self-loathing. "I don't deserve a wedding." This was the crucible of her existence, a self-imposed exile from hope, a life lived under the heavy cloak of shame. The air in Laramie was thick with more than just dust. It was heavy with unspoken judgments and the suffocating weight of a community that preferred its outcasts to remain invisible. Evie's talent as a pianist was undeniable, her music capable of transforming the raucous Blue Lantern into a place of fleeting beauty. Yet even that gift was overshadowed by the scarlet letter of gossip. She was a fallen angel in their eyes, a woman who had dared to fall from grace and was now expected to remain there, forever bound to the shadows of her perceived transgressions. The casual cruelty of the patrons, their chants of soiled dove, were not mere words. They were the nails being hammered into the coffin of her dreams. Her world was a carefully constructed melody of sorrow, each note a testament to the belief that she was fundamentally unworthy of love, of respect, of a future that held any semblance of happiness. The simple act of existing, of breathing the same air as those who condemned her, felt like an imposition. Then, a different kind of note entered the symphony of her despair. Sheriff Caleb Hart, a man whose quiet strength and unwavering principles were as much a part of Laramie as the surrounding mountains, stepped into the harsh glare of the saloon. His presence was a stark contrast to the usual rough and tumble of the Blue Lantern. When a ranch hand, emboldened by liquor and the town's permissive silence, reached for Evie with a possessive hand, Caleb's voice, calm yet firm, cut through the din. "Let go, or see the inside of my jail." It was a simple statement, a declaration of law, but for Evie, it was a lifeline thrown into a turbulent sea. He didn't just protect her from a physical threat. He acknowledged her humanity in a moment when she felt stripped of it. The walk home that evening was a silent testament to the town's divided heart. As Caleb walked Evie through the familiar streets, the townsfolk watched, their gazes like a physical weight. They saw not a woman being escorted home by her sheriff, but a symbol of scandal, a reminder of the boundaries they felt she had crossed. The silence of the onlookers was more potent than any shouted accusation, a collective condemnation that seeped into Evie's bones. Then, the fragile peace was shattered. The sharp crack of a rifle shot echoed through the night, followed by the splintering of glass as a bullet struck Evie's window. A crudely written note, pinned to the shattered frame, delivered its chilling message: "Leave town, Evelyn." The threat was unmistakable, a direct consequence of her perceived defiance, of Caleb's simple act of protection. Caleb's response was immediate and resolute. He looked at Evie, his gaze steady, and declared, "You aren't leaving." His words were a shield against the violence that threatened to engulf her. Evie, however, was trapped by her own ingrained belief in her unworthiness. "I'm not worth a fight," she whispered, the words a confession of her deepest fear. It was in this charged atmosphere that Cole Maddox, a man whose influence stretched like a dark shadow over Laramie, made his presence known. He appeared in the street, his imposing figure a deliberate challenge, his voice dripping with disdain as he declared, "Laramie don't need her kind." It was a public threat, a brutal assertion of his power, designed to reinforce the town's prejudice and crush any flicker of hope Evie might have dared to entertain. Maddox was the architect of Laramie's undercurrent of corruption, a cattle baron who wielded his wealth and influence to maintain a status quo that benefited him, a status quo that demanded the ostracization of women like Evie. It was against this backdrop of shame and intimidation that Caleb Hart offered not just protection, but a radical act of faith. He countered Maddox's venom with a profound, almost unbelievable proposition: "Marry me." The words hung in the air, a stark counterpoint to the venomous pronouncements that had defined Evie's existence. Evie recoiled, the offer too immense, too alien to her fractured self-perception. The very idea of being joined to a man like Caleb, a man of integrity and respect, felt like a violation of some unspoken law of nature. As if to punctuate the town's cruelty, a church bell began to toll, a mournful sound that carried on the wind. On the church door, a torn wedding veil had been hung, a mocking testament to Evie's perceived unsuitability for such a sacred union. It was a deliberate, public humiliation, a final attempt to solidify her status as an outcast. Yet, Caleb persisted, his conviction a quiet force against the tide of condemnation. "Let me stand beside you, proper," he urged, his offer not of possession, but of partnership, of legitimacy. In a moment of profound vulnerability, a flicker of defiance against her own despair, Evie agreed to a courthouse ceremony at dawn, a plea for anonymity echoing in her request. No dress, no fuss. It was a fragile surrender, a tentative step away from the abyss, a silent acknowledgement that perhaps, just perhaps, she was not entirely beyond redemption. The narrative of Evelyn Parker and Sheriff Caleb Hart is not merely a tale of frontier romance. It is a poignant exploration of how societal judgment can wound, how courage can bloom in the most barren of circumstances, and how the unwavering belief of one person can ignite a spark of hope in another. It delves into the deeply ingrained prejudices of a bygone era, where a woman's past could define her future and where the whispers of gossip held the power to ostracize and destroy. This story confronts the pervasive notion that certain individuals, due to their circumstances or perceived flaws, are inherently unworthy of love, happiness, and a chance at redemption. It challenges the audience to question their own judgments, to look beyond the surface and recognize the inherent dignity and worth in every soul, regardless of their past mistakes or societal stigmas. The narrative is built on the bedrock of emotional authenticity, aiming to resonate with the universal human experience of longing for acceptance, the pain of ostracization, and the transformative power of love and forgiveness. It's about finding strength in vulnerability and recognizing that true worth is not determined by the opinions of others, but by the courage to embrace one's own truth and the willingness of others to see that truth. The story begins with Evie Parker, a talented saloon pianist in Laramie, Wyoming Territory, in 1887. Her life is a stark contrast to the romantic ideal, marked by the harsh realities of frontier judgment. She is a woman ostracized by the community, her past a source of constant gossip and condemnation, leading her to believe she is utterly undeserving of any semblance of a normal life, particularly a wedding. This internal conviction is amplified by external pressures, creating a profound conflict within her. The narrative's unique angle lies in its exploration of how societal shame can become an internal prison and how an act of genuine compassion and belief from an unexpected source can begin to dismantle those walls. The central problem is not just the external threats Evie faces, but her own deeply ingrained belief in her unworthiness, a belief that is constantly reinforced by the town's attitudes and the machinations of influential figures like Cole Maddox. Sheriff Caleb Hart, a man of integrity and quiet strength, represents the antithesis of the town's prejudice. His decision to offer Evie his hand, a public gesture of support and belief, is the inciting incident that challenges not only Maddox's power, but also Evie's self-imposed exile. This offer of marriage, made in the face of public scorn and direct threats, is the core of the story's romantic tension. It's a testament to Caleb's unwavering conviction that Evie is worthy, a conviction that Evie herself cannot yet embrace. The narrative will intricately weave Evie's internal struggle with the external conflicts, demonstrating how her journey towards accepting love and her own worth is intrinsically linked to the fight against the corruption and prejudice represented by Cole Maddox. The story promises a dramatic arc, moving from deep personal shame to public vindication, all underpinned by a romance that defies societal expectations and personal doubt. The hook, what if the person everyone says is unworthy of love is the only one brave enough to save the town, immediately positions Evie not as a victim, but as a potential hero, subtly shifting the narrative's focus from her shame to her strength. This provocative question sets the stage for a story that will explore themes of redemption, courage, and the redefinition of worth. The subsequent engagement, asking viewers to share their location and subscribe for more, is designed to build community and anticipation, hinting at a deeper, untold aspect of Evie's story that will be revealed. This approach aims to create an immediate emotional connection, drawing the audience into Evie's world and making them invested in her journey from the very beginning. The logline concisely encapsulates the core conflict: Laramie, Wyoming. Territory: 1887. A saloon pianist, branded by gossip and believing herself unworthy of a wedding, finds an unexpected offer of marriage from a principled sheriff. This act ignites a dangerous confrontation with a powerful cattle baron determined to maintain the status quo, a status quo that includes keeping Evie silenced and shamed. The core themes of societal judgment, personal redemption, and the transformative power of love are established, setting the stage for a compelling narrative of courage against adversity. The carefully selected cast of characters, Evie, Caleb, Maddox, Nora, Amos, and Marshall Pike, each represent different facets of this world, from friendship and loyalty to corruption and the ultimate reach of federal law, promising a rich tapestry of relationships and conflicts that will drive the story forward. The initial moments of the story immerse the audience in Evie's world, immediately establishing her precarious position. The Blue Lantern Saloon, a place of both her talent and her torment, becomes the stage for her deepest vulnerability. As she finishes a song, the familiar jeers of the patrons, Soiled Dove, serve as a stark reminder of her ostracization. Her whispered confession to Nora, "I don't deserve a wedding," is the emotional bedrock of her character, a declaration of her self-perceived unworthiness that will define her internal struggle throughout the narrative. This sets a somber, yet resonant, tone, immediately drawing the audience into Evie's emotional landscape and highlighting the central conflict of her internal battle against shame. The climax of this initial segment arrives with a ranch hand's aggressive advance towards Evie. It is in this moment of physical threat that Sheriff Caleb Hart intervenes, his presence a beacon of order and protection. His firm command, "Let go, or see the inside of my jail," is more than just a lawman's duty. It is an affirmation of Evie's right to safety and dignity, a stark contrast to the town's prevailing attitude. This act of protection, however, does not erase the ingrained societal judgment. As Caleb escorts Evie home, the townsfolk's stares are a palpable force, a silent condemnation that underscores her isolation. The narrative then escalates with a violent warning, a shattered window, and a note declaring, "Leave town, Evelyn." This direct threat, a consequence of Caleb's intervention and Evie's continued presence, amplifies the danger and solidifies the opposition she faces. Caleb's unwavering stance, "You aren't leaving," directly confronts Evie's own despairing belief, "I'm not worth a fight." This internal conflict is brought to a head with the dramatic appearance of Cole Maddox. His public declaration, "Laramie don't need her kind," is a calculated move to intimidate Evie and undermine Caleb's authority, framing the conflict as a battle for the town's soul. It is in this charged atmosphere, amidst the palpable tension and public condemnation, that Caleb makes his pivotal offer, "Marry me." This proposal is an act of profound faith, a direct challenge to the narrative of shame that has defined Evie's life. Evie's recoil is a natural response to a proposal that seems too good, too pure, to be true for someone she believes to be so flawed. The symbolic act of a torn wedding veil hung on the church door further emphasizes the town's cruelty and Evie's deep-seated belief that she is undeserving. Caleb's gentle persistence, "Let me stand beside you," reframes the offer not as a rescue, but as a partnership, an invitation to a future built on mutual respect. Evie's hesitant agreement to a simple courthouse ceremony at dawn, no dress, no fuss, marks a crucial turning point, a fragile acceptance of hope against the overwhelming tide of her past. This sequence masterfully builds tension, establishes the central romance, and sets the stage for the escalating conflict with Maddox. The narrative then transitions into Act 2, where the pressure on Evie and Caleb intensifies and the evidence against Maddox begins to surface. Deputy Amos Reed's discovery of ledgers implicating Maddox and Stolen Army Amos's discovery of ledgers tying Maddox to Stolen Army beef doesn't immediately translate into justice. The territorial judge, beholden to Maddox's considerable debts, dismisses the evidence outright, refusing to issue warrants. This judicial corruption highlights a critical facet of the power dynamics at play. The law itself is compromised, rendering Caleb's local authority insufficient against Maddox's influence. Consequently, Caleb must seek recourse beyond Laramie's tainted justice system, planning a perilous journey to Cheyenne to enlist the aid of the U.S. Marshal. This necessity for external intervention underscores the depth of Maddox's entrenchment and the systemic rot that Evie and Caleb are up against. The theme here is the insidious nature of corruption, how it can poison even the institutions meant to uphold fairness, forcing those seeking justice to undertake extraordinary measures. The perilous journey to Cheyenne is fraught with danger, culminating in a violent ambush on a desolate ridge. As dusk settles, shots ring out, forcing Caleb and Amos to dive for cover behind basalt formations. This ambush is not merely an attempt to silence them. It's a brutal demonstration of Maddox's ruthlessness and his willingness to employ deadly force to protect his empire. The raw fear and adrenaline of this moment reveal a deeper layer of Evie's character. While tending Evie's steady hands as she bandages Amos's wound are more than just a display of practical skill. They reveal an inner fortitude forged in the crucible of her past experiences. While the town saw a disgraced pianist, Caleb saw a woman with an innate resilience. Her battlefield calm, a stark contrast to the panic that often grips those unaccustomed to violence, speaks volumes about her unacknowledged strength. This is not the Nora's clandestine delivery of a letter, penned by a missing ranch widow who had dared to defy Maddox's men, provides Evie with a critical piece of evidence, a testament to the violence and injustice Maddox perpetuated. This missive, a desperate plea for truth from a woman silenced by fear, becomes a potent symbol of the hidden suffering within Laramie, a suffering Evie is now uniquely positioned to expose. The widow's narrative, once a solitary cry in the wilderness, is now intertwined with Evie's own burgeoning fight for justice, transforming a personal grievance into a collective cause. This act shifts Evie's role from a passive recipient of protection to an active participant in the pursuit of truth, her empathy for the widow fueling her resolve. Evie's decision to volunteer to carry the incriminating ledgers to Cheyenne, while Caleb draws Maddox's attention, is a bold strategic maneuver born from her newfound determination. This is not merely a matter of courage. It's a calculated risk that demonstrates a keen understanding of the volatile situation. By positioning herself as the courier, Evie leverages the very underestimation Maddox and his ilk have of her. They see a saloon pianist, a woman accustomed to the confines of the Blue Lantern, not a potential threat to their illicit operations. This perception gap is precisely what Evie intends to exploit, turning her perceived weakness into her greatest asset. The perilous night ride across the Medicine Bow Flats is a masterclass in evasion and resourcefulness. As the pursuit ignites, Evie's quick thinking leads her to pull into a box canyon, extinguishing her lantern and melting into the darkness. The thunder of pursuing hoofbeats passing by is a chilling confirmation of her success, a testament to her ability to outmaneuver those who seek to stop her. This experience solidifies her transformation. She is no longer just a pianist, but a woman capable of navigating the dangers of the frontier with remarkable composure and ingenuity. The silence of the canyon, broken only by the receding sounds of her pursuers, is a moment of profound personal victory, a quiet triumph over the forces that sought to silence her. Reaching the Cheyenne Depot at dawn, Evie presents the ledgers to Marshal Pike. The gravity of the situation is immediately apparent as Pike's jaw clenches, his reaction conveying the weight of the evidence. His pronouncement, "This hangs a cattle king," signifies the turning point. The local corruption has reached the ears of federal authority. The subsequent telegraph dispatch back to Laramie, resulting in the issuance of federal warrants, represents the culmination of Evie's daring journey and the first tangible victory against Maddox. This moment underscores the theme that sometimes the most effective way to combat entrenched local corruption is to appeal to a higher, more impartial power, and that even the most marginalized voices can affect change when armed with truth and courage. The narrative then propels us into Act 3, where the townsfolk's perception of Evie begins to shift, and the confrontation over her wedding reaches its zenith. Evie's return to Laramie is met with a palpable change in the atmosphere. The whispers persist, but they are now tinged with a nascent respect, a recognition of her bravery. The simple gesture of a child handing her wildflowers is a powerful symbol of this evolving sentiment, a pure and unadulterated acknowledgement of her worth, untainted by adult prejudice. This small act of kindness signifies a crack in the wall of collective judgment, hinting at the possibility of genuine acceptance. Maddox, however, remains a formidable obstacle, his power threatened by the unfolding events. His confrontation on Main Street, blocking the thoroughfare with his riders and issuing a stark ultimatum, "Call it off," is a desperate attempt to reassert his dominance and prevent the wedding, which now symbolizes a significant shift in Laramie's power dynamics. This public challenge sets the stage for the story's central romantic and dramatic climax. Caleb's response is one of unwavering solidarity. He steps beside Evie, openly taking her hand, a public declaration of their commitment that directly counters Maddox's intimidation. This gesture is not merely a romantic act. It is a political statement, aligning the law with Evie and challenging Maddox's authority in the most visible way possible. The scene then moves to the church, where the full weight of the town's attention is focused. The full pews and the trembling preacher underscore the significance of the moment, a testament to the stakes involved. Evie's whispered, tearful confession, "I don't deserve a wedding," reveals that despite her outward bravery, her internal battle with shame continues. Caleb's steady reply, "You deserve a future," is a powerful affirmation of her worth, offering her not just a marriage, but a path forward, a future free from the shadows of her past. As the vows begin, Evie's voice, initially trembling, steadies, mirroring her growing inner strength. The narrative is building towards its most dramatic confrontation. The sudden crack of gunfire, shattering the church's bell, plunges the ceremony into chaos and panic. Caleb's immediate instinct to shield Evie, followed by Amos's return fire, showcases their loyalty and courage under extreme duress. Evie's refusal to seek shelter, her defiant cry, "Finish it," demonstrates her complete transformation. She is no longer a victim, but an active participant in her own destiny, willing to face the danger head-on. The arrival of Marshal Pike and his posse, bursting into the church from an alley and surrounding Maddox's men, marks the decisive intervention of federal authority. Pike's serving of federal warrants is met with Maddox's defiant sneer, "Paper won't stop iron," a foreshadowing of the inevitable clash. The ensuing street duel between Caleb and Maddox's gunmen is a tense, heart-stopping moment. Caleb's disarming of the gunman with a single, precise shot is a display of his mastery and the ultimate triumph of law and order over brute force. The click of handcuffs signifies the end of Maddox's reign of terror. The townsfolk shift, in gaze towards Evie, now marked by quiet respect, signifies the profound change her actions have wrought. The preacher, his voice raw with emotion, resumes the ceremony, and as he declares them married, the church erupts in a wave of relief and acceptance, a cathartic release for the entire community. This sequence masterfully blends romantic climax with dramatic resolution, culminating in Evie's earned acceptance and the restoration of justice. Act 4, titled Cost and Change, delves into the aftermath of Maddox's downfall, exploring the lingering consequences and the profound societal shifts within Laramie. Maddox, despite his arrest, attempts one last desperate act of defiance, seeking to bribe a guard, a testament to his unyielding arrogance and his inability to accept defeat. This final gambit, however, is thwarted by Evie's unwavering commitment to justice. In open court, Evie delivers her testimony, bolstered by the widow's letter. This public recounting of Maddox's abuses, delivered with quiet strength and dignity, is a powerful act of witness. The judge, cornered by the irrefutable evidence and the federal warrants, is compelled to act, signing asset seizures that dismantle Maddox's corrupt empire. This legal victory is not just about punishment. It's about restitution and the restoration of a community's faith in its institutions. The narrative emphasizes that true change often requires facing the past and holding those responsible accountable, even when it is painful. Nora, too, experiences a transformation, reopening the saloon not as the Blue Lantern, but as a music hall with strict rules. This rebranding symbolizes a new era for Laramie, one where respectability and genuine artistry are prioritized over vice and exploitation. Evie's return to the piano, now adorned with a simple white ribbon, a subtle nod to her wedding and her reclaimed innocence, signifies her acceptance of her new identity. She plays not for a drunken crowd, but for a community that now appreciates her talent and her courage. The intimate moment when Caleb asks Evie to choose a ring, hand in hand on Main Street in the daylight, underscores the solid foundation of their relationship. This is not a hasty decision made in crisis, but a conscious choice to build a future together, grounded in mutual respect and shared experience. Evie's tearful nod is a silent affirmation of her complete transformation. Her journey from believing she didn't deserve happiness to actively embracing it. The departure of Marshall Pike, boarding the train with the prisoners, marks the official end of Maddox's influence and a formal acknowledgement of Evie's pivotal role. His respectful tip of the hat, "Ma'am," is a significant gesture, recognizing her not as a saloon girl, but as a woman of integrity who helped bring about justice. This final interaction solidifies the narrative's theme that true worth is earned through courage and integrity, and that societal perceptions can and should evolve. The closing narration encapsulates the story's central message. In a town that measured worth by whispers, one woman kept walking because one man refused to let go of her hand. This poignant summary highlights the intertwined nature of Evie's personal journey and Caleb's steadfast support, emphasizing that love and belief can overcome even the most deeply ingrained societal prejudices. The final engagement, inviting viewers to share their location and subscribe for an epilogue from Evie's diary, promises a continuation of this narrative, offering a deeper glimpse into her life beyond the immediate resolution and reinforcing the emotional resonance of her story. The societal shift in Laramie, as depicted by the transformation of the saloon into a music hall and the town's newfound respect for Evie, illustrates a profound evolution in communal perception. This transition is not merely about changing opinions. It signifies a renegotiation of what Laramie values. Where once shame dictated social standing, now integrity and resilience are being recognized as the true currency. Consider how this applies. When you face situations where past mistakes, perhaps minor indiscretions or unfortunate circumstances, have cast a long shadow over your reputation, the narrative suggests that it is not the absence of past errors, but the courageous response to them and the subsequent demonstration of character that ultimately redefines one's place within a community. Evie's journey underscores that redemption is not a solitary act, but a process that involves both personal growth and the willingness of others to acknowledge that growth. Furthermore, the symbolism of the white ribbon Evie wears is a subtle yet potent element. It represents not a return to a naive innocence, but a conscious reclaiming of her identity and a public declaration of her commitment to a future built on honesty. This is akin to how individuals, after navigating significant personal challenges, might adopt a new approach to their lives, perhaps through a change in profession, a dedication to a cause, or a commitment to personal principles. The ribbon acts as a visual cue, signifying that Evie has integrated her past experiences without being defined by them, a crucial distinction for genuine personal evolution. The act of choosing a ring in daylight, hand in hand with Caleb on Main Street, moves beyond the clandestine nature of their initial agreement. This public, deliberate selection of a symbol of their union transforms their commitment from a refuge, from societal pressure into a bold statement of shared purpose. Now, consider how this applies when you are ready to publicly affirm a significant commitment, whether it be a partnership, a professional endeavor, or a personal principle. The narrative emphasizes the power of such public declarations in solidifying one's resolve and inviting communal affirmation, thereby embedding the commitment within the fabric of everyday life. Marshall Pike's respectful acknowledgement, "The simple ma'am," carries immense weight. It signifies the final dismantling of the prejudice that had previously defined Evie's interactions with authority. This is not merely a formal courtesy. It is an earned respect, a recognition of her agency and her contribution to justice. Think about instances where your own efforts, perhaps in challenging a difficult situation or advocating for a cause, have eventually led to a shift in how others perceive your capabilities and your character. Pike's gesture serves as a powerful reminder that persistent integrity and courageous action can indeed alter established perceptions, paving the way for genuine recognition. The legal ramifications of Maddox's downfall extend beyond his personal imprisonment. impacting the very economic structure of Laramie. His ill-gotten gains had propped up numerous businesses and individuals, creating a fragile ecosystem dependent on his corrupt practices. Consequently, the seizure of his assets triggers a ripple effect. Reflecting on this journey so far, the disparate elements of Evie's experience begin to coalesce, forming a more profound understanding of resilience and the arduous path toward earned respect. The initial whispers of doubt, once deafening, now recede, replaced by a growing chorus of quiet acknowledgement. It becomes evident that the true measure of a person is not in the absence of struggle, but in the unwavering spirit that navigates through it, transforming adversity into a crucible for inner strength. The narrative has shown how deeply entrenched societal judgments can be, acting as invisible chains that bind individuals to predetermined roles. Yet, it has also illuminated the potent force of unwavering belief, a force capable of forging new pathways where none seem to exist. In light of these insights, the path forward becomes clearer, revealing the delicate interplay between personal courage and the external validation that often follows. The narrative has intricately woven the threads of individual fortitude with the broader tapestry of community perception, demonstrating how one can influence the other in a powerful, often unexpected, dance. Consider the subtle shift in the town's gaze, a visual metaphor for a broader societal recalibration, where perceived flaws gradually give way to an appreciation for inherent worth. This evolution underscores the idea that change, while often slow and met with resistance, is ultimately possible when individuals dare to challenge the status quo, not through aggression, but through steadfast conviction and the quiet assertion of truth. As we pivot towards the final reflection, we see how the initial vulnerability, once a source of shame, has transmuted into a profound wellspring of empathy and understanding. This transformation is not merely about overcoming external obstacles. It is about an internal metamorphosis, a shedding of self-imposed limitations. The narrative has, in essence, illustrated how the deepest wounds can, with time and support, become the very foundations upon which a stronger, more authentic self is built. The cumulative effect of these experiences is akin to a landscape reshaped by elemental forces. The contours are altered, but the land itself remains, imbued with a new, more resilient character. The convergence of these explored ideas prepares us for the ultimate understanding of what it truly means to reclaim one's narrative and find peace in a world that often struggles to embrace it. The implications of this journey resonate deeply, leaving us poised to grasp the enduring significance of the path Evie has so bravely traversed. In a town that once measured worth by the hushed tones of rumor and the sharp edges of judgment, Evelyn Parker's journey from ostracized saloon pianist to a woman standing tall in the light of her own reclaimed dignity is a testament to the quiet, persistent power of courage. Her story is not merely one of a frontier romance, but a profound exploration of how societal condemnation can forge an internal prison and how the unwavering belief of a single soul can offer the key to liberation. The narrative has meticulously illustrated that the whispers of shame, however persistent, can be overcome not by silencing them, but by refusing to let them dictate one's truth. Evie's transformation from believing she was undeserving of a wedding, of love, of a future, to standing openly beside Sheriff Caleb Hart signifies a victory far greater than any legal triumph. It is the triumph of self-acceptance over ingrained prejudice, a powerful reminder that our deepest convictions about ourselves are often the most formidable barriers to happiness. The enduring impact of Evie's ordeal lies in its subtle, yet potent challenge to the very foundations of how communities define value. Laramie, like many places, had established a hierarchy of worth, one that often marginalized those who deviated from prescribed norms. Evie, by her very existence and her refusal to be permanently broken by the town's judgment, forced a reevaluation of those standards. Her courage in carrying the incriminating ledgers, her steady hands in tending to the wounded Amos, and her defiant presence during her wedding ceremony were not isolated acts of bravery. They were the cumulative manifestations of a spirit that refused to be extinguished. This underscores a vital implication: that true strength is not the absence of fear or past mistakes, but the active choice to rise above them, to confront them with integrity, and to, in doing so, redefine one's own narrative and, by extension, influence the narrative of those around you. The resonance of this story echoes far beyond the dusty streets of Laramie. It speaks to the universal human experience of seeking acceptance and the profound healing that occurs when one is truly seen and valued for who they are, not for who others believe them to be. Caleb Hart's unwavering hand, offered not as a rescuer but as an equal partner, illustrates the transformative power of genuine support. It highlights that love, in its most profound form, is an act of faith, a willingness to see the inherent worth in another, even when they struggle to see it themselves. The narrative leaves us with the understanding that the most significant battles are often waged within, and that the courage to face those internal demons, to challenge the narratives of unworthiness that we internalize, is the first and most crucial step toward a life of authenticity and joy. The true practice begins now, in recognizing the echoes of Laramie's judgment within our own lives and communities, and in choosing, like Evie, to walk forward with a steady heart, accepting the future that is rightfully ours to claim.